How to speak Spanish.
Ella es una mujer.
Ella is a muña. Ella is a muña.
Ella es una mujer. Ella es una mujer. Ella es una mujer.
What's up guys, how we doing, and welcome back to another YouTube video. So over the last couple of weeks, and especially over the last couple of days, I decided that I want to learn a language, and as you can see, the language was Spanish. When I was at school, this is something that I kind of neglected a lot in terms of learning. I didn't prioritize this, and I didn't think this was kind of important to myself. It's something that I look back at in a massive regret in terms of my education. So I really want to learn a language, and I plan on doing so. I'm basically really tempted to hold myself accountable to each YouTube video, say something in Spanish, to show you guys that I am actually learning it, and I'm not just saying that, oh yeah, I'm going to learn Spanish, and I don't actually do so. You know, I'm not that sort of person. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So I'm quite tempted, each YouTube video I might just throw something in Spanish and see how I get on. If there are any Spanish speakers watching this video right now, or anybody that has learned the language that you recommend, any kind of book, app or anything like that, please leave it in the comment section below. So this is the very first fitness video since coming back from holiday. This is since the summer shredding series. Once again, thank you so much for the support that you provided on there. Really kind of enjoyed doing the videos, and I kind of really enjoyed the dieting process ready for my holiday in Lanzarote. But now I'm in a off season. Okay, so the aim of this off season is to put on as much muscle tissue as possible, and when I next kind of cut down, to hopefully bring a much better package than the one that I've brought before. So the areas that I know that I need to improve, firstly for men's physique, is going to be my delts, my back and my chest. If I'm able to bring up these three muscle groups, it's going to make a massive difference to my physique, and hopefully bring me the result that I'm after next year when I compete in 2020. I also want to massively improve my quads and my hamstrings. Even though in men's physique that you don't actually show your quads and your hamstrings, you only show your calves. It's something that I really kind of like in the physique, and especially myself, I think it's quite aesthetic to have really kind of nice quads. So basically what I'm saying is I want to kind of improve every muscle group. So proud but never satisfied, as Christian Guzman says it. You always want to improve. So but definitely my delts and my back, even though they are perhaps a strong point for me because they kind of have to be for physique, I need them to grow so much more ready for next year. Today is going to be a lower body training day, and this is my second lower body session of the week. I'm actually going to be training at a gym in Whittam called Factory Gym. And this gym apparently has some fantastic leg equipment like a hack squat, a pendulum squat, which my gym that I train down at the road doesn't have. But first I'm going to get my pre-workout in, my oats, whey, banana, peanut butter. Let's go. Okay, cool. So straight into the lower body session at Factory Gym. It was an absolute ball ache going all the way here, and that's the problem when you don't have a car. You literally have to walk everywhere, and you have to take public transport, which is less than ideal. However, I'm committed to go into here at least once a week, purely because the gym I'm at the moment just doesn't have the leg equipment that a gym like this does, the hack squats, the pendulum squats and all of those. So I'm going to do one of my lower body sessions here every single week. I'm going to commit to that, whether it's going to take me slightly longer to get there. I'm basically going to commit to it. So in for legs, first warm-up exercise, I'm just doing 2 sets of 8 to 10 on here. This is something that I've started to incorporate into my lower body sessions, purely because the contraction I feel when I do a squat is so much better. The one thing that I would say in regards to training legs is find that depth. Like, don't worry too much about the load to begin with. You know, when it comes to a squat, you have to go deep. You have to, fully kind of shorten, lengthen the muscle group that you're working. you see so many people that will squat, incorrectly, and that's not me necessarily being horrible saying that, because I've been there myself. You want to kind of get as much load on the bar as possible without actually taking consideration of what you're working. So that's the first tip that I'll suggest you guys doing. Find that depth. Here, this is the pendulum squat. This is the first time using this. Took a little while getting used to it. Just have to get my foot placement right first and kind of find that depth, because obviously I've only been used to a barbell back squat. This is a completely different movement to myself. Trying to keep the knees over toes, trying to keep those feet as flat as possible, not letting that heel raise up too much. That's something that I've been using for a while, is Vans, just because I prefer the flatter feet. I have used squatting shoes before, just haven't been necessarily a big fan of them. Not saying that they're not good or they don't work or anything like that, but for myself, I just prefer a flatter foot, and it just feels a lot better when squatting. Top set and a back off set. This is something that I suggest you guys doing if you haven't utilised it already. Yes, there's not a right way or wrong way, but doing a top set and a back off set, for most exercises, the top set, the high intensity, you go and literally balls to the wall, everything into that top set. A back off, just drop the weight off a little bit more, and obviously it's going to be a higher rep range. So if you haven't used that before, would highly recommend. On to my second movement, if you're not including the warm-up exercise, and this is the hack squat. Again, very similar, completely different movement to a barbell squat. So when you're utilising this movement, it feels weird. It feels so odd, because as you can see, when I drop down, the depth that I'd probably be used to there, it doesn't go to that full range of motion. So this is an absolute fantastic piece of kit. Again, nothing too impressive number wise. I'm just getting used to these movements. It's going to be a few weeks before I really kind of push on with the load and the numbers. Just want to get the contraction, the movement, and everything like that right first. Another thing that I would say in regards to kind of building your legs would be purely, you don't have to do every single movement for lots and lots of sets. There's so many movements that you can do there for your lower body. You can do your squats, you can do your deadlifts, you can do your lunges. Don't feel that you have to do all of them. If you have a specific training program to do, stick to it, commit to it, find out what works, and obviously include different rotations if you want to. Like for myself, I do a lower session twice a week, so I do 1 and 2. Obviously I can get strong across a number of movements. The movements that I don't put into the sessions at the moment will come next rotation if I feel like they're good enough to include in my next kind of training block. So that's one thing that I'll be wary of. Don't feel that you have to continually put movements in just for the sake of it, just because you have to. Just find what works for you and stick to it. And yeah, this is my back off set. On to my next movement, which is going to be my first hamstring one, and this is a dumbbell RDL. I apologise about the absolutely horrendous camera angle here, and my knees are not looking too impressive at all, but this one, what you want to kind of basically be doing is pushing your hips back as much as possible, keeping your back as straight as possible, and keeping those dumbbells as close to your shins, keeping your head kind of like straight ahead of you. I do apologise about the faces that I'm putting on this one, but yeah, keeping all the tension in the hamstrings, control it 1, 2, and then slight pause and then drive up, and that's the tempo I would do. In regards to the tempo, this is very, very important in terms of not just leg session but any kind of session. I always think of it for the eccentric phase, 2 seconds, slight pause, and then 1 second of the concentric. And that's most movements that I apply that to. Some movements like a lying hamstring curl, like this for example, I'd maybe up it to maybe 3 second eccentric with a slight pause and still driving up. Anyway, into the next movement. This is the hamstring curl. Big squeeze on this one. Again, this is the first time using this movement. I've used a lying hamstring curl before. This is slightly different, the position of it. My hips are slightly higher up, which has actually helped me keep my hips pinned down, if that makes sense. So the actual seat of this is much better for myself than the one that I've used previously. Next movement, onto the leg press. This is the rest pause set. I'll just do 1 set of this one. This is 12 to 15 reps. If you haven't done a rest pause set before, I'd highly recommend doing so, especially in a lower body session, purely because if you do all your heavy work to begin with, your squats, your deadlifts, which I've just shown you, your curls or your lunges, doing something like this. It doesn't have to be this exercise, but you're basically just going to failure. So for this one, I pick an exercise, leg press, 12 to 15 reps. So rest, pause, we'll rest for 10 seconds, we'll go to failure. I think I got like sort of anywhere between 6 and 8 reps. I'd rest for 10 seconds again, and I'll go straight back into the work and set, and I think I got anywhere between sort of 5-6 reps. With a leg press as well, find that depth. It's so easy to not kind of go really, really deep, but at the same time, it's so easy to go too deep. So just find that perfect range which sits well for yourself. Everyone's slightly different and able to contract the muscle. Finish off with calves. Guys, we don't forget about calves and leg days, as you know. This is 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. This is the kind of only exercise that I do that I kind of like range away from the 2 sets per exercise, purely because just getting that extra bit of volume in, which I don't really do any other movements than like a standing calf raise, purely because I feel better contraction. So that's the lower body session done. Onto our abs. This is 3 different movements that I'm incorporating at the moment. This is your hang and leg raise, 10 to 12 reps. That's my first exercise. Straight into rope crunches, similar kind of rep range, 10 to 12 reps. 2 sets on each of these. This is a fantastic exercise because obviously you can load this up, you can increase the load, keep the tension into the core as much as possible, and then finishing off with like a knee hang and leg raise with a 10-second pause. So much needed post-workout. As you saw there, highly prioritizing carbohydrates post-workout. Your glycogen stores are super depleted. So personally, myself, I try and have a higher carbohydrate meal. So my option is something that's easy digestible and a higher GI carbohydrate. So I've got the cocoa snaps, I've got the rice starchy carbs, and I also have a moderate amount of protein as well. I try and have sort of anywhere between 20 and 45 grams of protein per meal. I'm having about 225 grams of protein, and that's of just a whey source. So this is what I have, minimal fat as well. And this tends to be a standard meal, either in off season or when I'm prepping as well. When I'm dieted down, I'm just prioritizing the carbohydrates pre and post workout. Obviously, when you're off season as well, your carbs can be so high, you might get up to like 500 to 600 grams of carbohydrates. So obviously you have to scatter them throughout the day. At the moment, my post workout, I've been doing this for a while. I'm allowing anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour for my heart rate to come down from its elevated state. Make sure it's uptaking the nutrients the best way possible, because you don't want to kind of consume all these carbohydrates and not necessarily use them to your advantage. Again, when you're just having your post-workout meal, just ensure that you're allowing time for digestion. You know, you're very hungry because you're very depleted. It's so easy to scoff it down. Give yourself anywhere between sort of 10 and 20 minutes to finish the food. And that's something that I just highly recommend. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Adios. Adios, amigos. Oh man, I can't take myself seriously.